Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another Doctor Who December. It's time for another one of Josh Snares' big polls. It's time for the William Hartnell era. I really love in Doctor Who December giving each Doctor some love. Now I definitely find it more difficult every year, but particularly with the newer notifications, particularly with the newer era, because I feel like I've seen loads of it, so trying to find like new stuff to react to is actually, I find, really hard. But I like to try and include all the Doctors, and of course we can never forget Hartnell because he was the first, and if it weren't for him doing such an incredible job, the show wouldn't be here. So let's have a look. It will be interesting to see how much I actually remember. Off the top of my head, I have a couple of standouts, but I don't think the ones I liked with Hartnell were necessarily like absolute standouts. So we will see. Let's crack on.
And you can find a link in the description below.
Today, we'll be starting off with my favourite Doctor, the first Doctor, played by William Hartnell.
God rest his soul. 29.
On the planet Vortis, a force known
yes,
as
I agree.
Animus is
Not for
luring
me.
the TARDIS to it. As a child, Bill Strutton, the writer, was bitten by a bull ant when he interrupted two bull ants fighting, and remembered the experience when he saw his two sons fighting like them. He thought that having the Doctor face off gigantic ants would be quite terrifying, and that's how he came up with the story. The TARDIS lands in 17th century Cornwall, where the TARDIS team find themselves in the middle of a pirate plot, and Patrick Troughton was approached to be his replacement. The disgusting reals versus the beautiful Dravens. I wonder who is the good guy and who is the bad guy.
I don't mind Galaxy 4.
John Wiles, the producer, went to the BBC copyright department and asked about the rights to the Dravens because he considered using them again, which never happened. The TARDIS lands on a spaceship where they discover a crew who is seemingly being
Why is the sensor rights this low?
by creatures known only as the Sensorites.
Oh, I love
With
the
the show being
Sensorites.
constantly filmed in tiny, inadequate studios, Sidney Newman threatened the head of drama that he would rather cancel Doctor Who than continue filming in these facilities. The risk paid off, and the production was moved to Riverside Studio 1. The travellers find themselves surrounded by
I loved
objects
Planet of
and encounter
Giants.
gigantic people, but not everything is as it seems. This hero's concept, the TARDIS team shrunk to miniature, was the original concept for the first serial, but due to production limitations and Sidney Newman, head of drama, disapproving of the concept, it was held off. The Doctor and friends visit the Space Museum and discover that no one can hear them or see
I gave
them.
this a 10 out of 10.
Michael Craze, who played companion Ben
No.
Jackson, was the brother of Peter Craze, who played Daco in the serial.
Oh.
The Elders are draining the life force from the people known only as the Savages.
Yeah.
This was Peter Purvis's final regular appearance as Stephen Taylor, and was content with leaving due to the lack of character development in recent stories. The Doctor and his friends land in Tombstone in the year 1881, where they encounter
I don't like
infamous
Westerns, but
Doc
this-
Holliday and sing a song or two.
Tiny soft
Patrick
spot for
Troughton was
this.
suggested to play Johnny Ringo until he was found to be unavailable. The TARDIS travellers are stuck in another dimension, which is
How
home
is this
to the Celestial
21?
Toymaker. The Trilogic game prop was a centre point of the story, and after production wrapped, Peter Purvis took it home. Dodo accidentally almost wipes out an entire civilization because of her runny nose. Monica, the Indian elephant that featured in the episode, had to spend the night before filming in a van outside of the director's house, due to the driver not being allowed to park at Ealing, where the story was being
I
filmed.
don't really remember this story.
The TARDIS lands in Paris, 1794, in the height of the French Revolution. During the rehearsals of Episode 3, A Change of Identity, the director, Henrik Hirsch, was struggling with the workload and endless arguments with William Hartnell that when he left rehearsals early, he was found collapsed outside. John Gorrie, director of The Keys of Marinus, took over for the remainder of the serial.
I didn't mind Reign of Terror.
Stephen, Vicky, and the Doctor land in ancient Troy
I like
and get
this
tied
one.
up in the Trojan horse plot. Due to an alleged miscommunication between Maureen O'Brien and the producer, she was wrote out of the program at the end of the serial. William Hartnell was not impressed and Maureen was shocked, but not entirely unhappy due to the lack of character development in recent stories.
Wow, they just wrote her
The
out.
TARDIS lands in 12th century Jaffa during the Crusade. Nicholas Courtney was originally considered for the role of King Richard, who would later play the Brigadier. Adrian Hill, who would later play Katerina, was considered for the role of Joanna. After being locked out of the TARDIS on the planet Marinus, the TARDIS team must find the lost keys in return for access to their ship. In the original draft, Barbara comments that the scanner is not in colour. The Doctor replies saying, "I was working on that on your planet. You remember the first time we met? I went along to the British Broadcasting Corporation, but they were infernally secretive." Susan replied, "Was that the day you came back in such a bad temper, grandfather?" "I never lose my temper." The TARDIS is malfunctioning, and the TARDIS team begin to turn on one another.
Oh,
After the first
yeah.
4 episodes of An Unearthly Child were produced, the BBC chief of programs wanted to cancel Doctor Who due to going over budget, but he was convinced to allow the team to make 13 individual episodes. Since An Unearthly Child was 4 episodes and The Daleks was 7 episodes, that left room for only a 2-part serial. Therefore, this script was commissioned. Space security agent Mark Corey is investigating Dalek sources appearing over the planet Kemble. Terry Nation, writer of the Daleks, wanted to pitch a Dalek spin-off and use this episode as a way of laying groundwork.
Yeah, I
for
agree with the
future
positioning of this.
whilst also setting up the Daleks' master plan. The TARDIS team meet a new friend in Vicky and discover she is being taunted by the dreaded Coquillion. Names
love
suggested for
Vicky.
Vicky were Millie, Valerie, and Tanny. When Barbara shoots Sandy, the sand monster, the charge went off too early, startling Jacqueline Hill. Thankfully, she was alright. The Doctor and Stephen land in Paris in 1572, where Stephen encounters a man who looks exactly like the Doctor, but he can't be. In the original script, actor William Russell and Jacqueline Hill would reprise their roles of Ian and Barbara in the closing moments, watching the TARDIS scene materialise. This sadly didn't come to pass. The Daleks chase the Doctor and friends throughout time to exterminate them once and for all.
Oh my God.
Companion Stephen Taylor, played by Peter Purvis, was originally called Roger Bruck, which later became Michael Taylor, and finally...
I forget about this story. This is one of my favourites from Hartnell's era.
This serial marked the first time we ever saw the Doctor and Susan and their travelling companions Barbara and Ian. In the original concept for the series, the exterior of the TARDIS before being chosen to be a police box was completely invisible, with the exterior being painted with light-resistant paint. It was later suggested that it should look like a police box by Anthony Coburn. The TARDIS team decided to take a
Oh, I
holiday
love the
and they go to
Romans.
ancient Rome. But the relaxation doesn't last long.
Love,
the serial was
love.
the first attempt at making a comedy historical and was to be a parody loosely inspired by the film Quo Vadis. The TARDIS is captured by Marco Polo, and the Doctor and friends are forced to join his caravan across China in 1289. The story features narration by Marco throughout the serial as diary entries. Originally, it was to be the Doctor, Barbara and Ian who would provide this narration. A futuristic computer known as Votan requires Doctor Who and wishes to make all intelligent life on Earth artificial. Edith Lloyd and Jerry Davis wanted to make Doctor Who more hip and relatable, so they added 2 new regulars to the program. These 2 characters
Love the
were
War
Ben and Polly,
Machines.
played
Oh,
by
no.
Michael Craze and Annika Wills, who were more in tone with the swinging 60s. In the Daleks, we meet, well, the Daleks.
Love
the design of
this
the Daleks that we know
story.
and love today nearly never happened. Originally, Ridley Scott was slated to be the designer for this serial. He later went on to be famous for directing Alien, Blade Runner, and many other films.
Oh, wow.
Cybernetic invaders from a world
Oh, I
almost
love the
identical
10th
to
planet.
ours lands in
Look
Antarctica
at the
in
Cybermen.
1986, and a change that shows that Doctor Who is far from being all over. William Hartnell became sick with bronchitis and couldn't appear in episode 3. Minor script changes were made to make Ben and Barclay take most of his lines. Barbara is mistaken to be the High Priest, Yetaxa, reincarnated. When the team moved from the tiny Studio G to TC3...
This was the turning point for me in Doctor Who when I started watching the classic era.
The designer, Barry Newbury, put together a new set, using what was surviving, to create a new area of the Garden of Peace. The Doctor encounters a mysterious monk who turns out to be someone quite familiar. Allegedly, William Hartnell was so upset with the multitude of changes, he would throw fake tantrums during rehearsals to annoy producer John Wiles and script editor Donald Tosh. The TARDIS lands in the 22nd century, and they discover the Daleks have taken over, and the Doctor is unsure if he can stop them. During location filming, designer Spencer Chapman put Dalek markings on various monuments, which the police were not exactly happy about. Luckily, no one was in trouble.
What could be number 1?
The Daleks intend on conquering the solar system and plan to use a weapon that can destroy time to do so. Arguments between William Hartnell and producer John Wiles reached a point where the crew had a brief strike. It even reached the Manchester Evening News that Hartnell would leave the show, which did not come to pass. Don't forget to enter the poll below.
So, the Dalek Master Plan is always considered a really popular one, but I remember enjoying it, but I need to rewatch it. That's the whole thing with this Hartnell era. I need to go back and watch it again because I just can't really remember. Celestial Toymaker was number 20. I had to write that down. I was that shocked. I loved the Celestial Toymaker because it's very up my street with like the puzzles and stuff. And then Keys of Marinus number 16. Keys of Marinus is one of my favourites along with the Aztecs. The Chase I always forget about, and I adored the Chase because it was so like varying. But actually it just sounded, you know, Doctor Who had just started, it sounded like they had loads of issues, and you know, who's to blame is not for me to talk about. But like hearing like Lethbridge Stewart's, obviously like Nicholas Courtney, and Patrick Troughton, and also Gunfighters definitely have a soft spot. I would just never get over the Doctor going to the dentist. I will never be over that. Like that's something they could so reference in the new era. But yeah, on a whole I agreed with it. There's definitely some stories that they were talking about that I was like, I don't really remember this. But that's why at some point I will do a rewatch. So let me know your opinions on the top 5 or so, and if there's any you absolutely disagree with. I know some of you do really like the Web Planet, so yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow for another reaction.